Today, we're going to talk about a really disciplined way to grow a business that basically flips that whole move fast and break things idea right on its head. We are diving into something called the TCL phase life cycle. Think of it as a blueprint for scaling your business the smart way.
Okay, so let's just start with the big question, right? We've all seen it. Some promising company just shoots up like a rocket and then flames out just as spectacularly. So why does that happen? Why is rapid growth, the one thing everybody seems to be chasing, so often the very thing that sinks the ship?
Well, it's usually because of something you could call the scaling trap. And that's our first stop. It's this idea that the old school path of just scaling as fast as you can, maybe because you've got a ton of capital or just sheer ambition, almost always leads to a very predictable and very costly set of problems.
And listen, we're not talking about little growing pains here. We're talking about serious operational stress that burns out your best people and sends quality straight into a nosedive. We're talking about compliance failures that can get you fined or even shut down completely. And we're talking about capital erosion, where you're just torching through cash without building anything solid to show for it.
This right here perfectly sums up the different ways of thinking. Over on the left, you've got traditional scaling. It just assumes you're ready to grow, which naturally creates a ton of risk and leads to that capital erosion we just talked about. But on the right, the TCL approach just flips that whole script. Readiness isn't something you assume, it's something you earn. Risk isn't a huge gamble you take all at once, it's gated. And your capital, it's not just spent, it's protected.
So here's our roadmap. We've talked about the problem, the scaling trap. Now we're going to look at the solution and then break down the 5 phases of growth. After that, we'll cover the non-negotiable rules for doing this right, and we'll wrap up with the core philosophy behind it all. The idea that growth is earned, not just assumed.
All right, so how do we stay out of that scaling trap? Well, that's where the phased life cycle comes in. I want you to think about it like you're building a skyscraper. You would never, ever start working on the 50th floor without knowing you have a rock-solid foundation, right? You know, the whole thing would just come crashing down. This framework is all about pouring that concrete first, making sure your business can actually handle the weight of growth when it comes.
And the secret sauce that makes this all work is this idea of control gates. Seriously, think of it like a video game. You can't just skip to the final boss. You have to beat each level to prove you've got the skills. In this framework, each phase has clear, objective, data-driven goals you have to hit. You pass the test, the gate opens, and you move on. It's a really simple but incredibly powerful way to make sure you are truly ready for what's next.
Okay, now let's get into the real heart of this thing, the 5 specific phases of growth. This is the actual step-by-step journey that takes an idea from, just a concept, all the way to a fully optimized, scalable machine.
So here they are, all 5 phases at a glance. You start with discovery and alignment. That's all about getting everyone on the same page. Then you move to a pilot launch, which is a tiny controlled test. After that, it's stabilization and readiness, which is where you prove you can do it again and again. Only then do you move to controlled scaling, where you start to carefully turn up the volume. And finally, you get to optimized production, the well-oiled machine you were aiming for all along. You can see the logic, right? You plan, then you prove, then you grow.
Phase 1 is the ultimate gatekeeper, discovery and alignment. This all happens before a single cent is spent on actual operations. It's where you ask all the tough questions right up front. Are we all on the same page strategically? Is the money actually there? Do we all agree on the rules of the game? If you get a no to any of these, you just don't move forward. This phase alone probably prevents countless failures down the road.
So once you're aligned, you can enter the pilot launch. And let me be really clear here. The goal is not to make a bunch of money. The goal is to prove you can execute with discipline. Can your team follow the process? Can you hit your compliance standards? Can you produce quality results over and over? It's all about validating the process, not the immediate profit.
And just to give you a real sense of the scale we're talking about, the pilot phase usually targets something like 50 CPLs, or cost per leads a day. That's a metric for how much it costs to get one potential new customer. And yeah, 50 is an intentionally small number. It's easy to manage, and it lets the team focus completely on quality and discipline without having to worry about huge volume.
Okay, so you nailed the pilot. Awesome. Now comes phase 3, stabilization. This is where you prove that your success in the pilot wasn't just a fluke. Was it a one-time thing held together by heroic effort and a bunch of late nights? Or is your system truly repeatable and resilient? This phase is what separates a truly sustainable operation from just a good experiment.
And only after you've proven you're stable do you get the green light for phase 4, controlled scaling. The key word here, you guessed it, is controlled. Growth happens step by step in ways you can actually handle. And most importantly, it is always, and I mean always, tied to how much quality and compliance oversight you have. You never ever grow faster than your ability to check your own work.
And finally, you reach the destination. Phase 5, optimized production. At this point, you're not in build mode anymore. You are officially in performance mode. The whole operation is stable, your output is predictable, and the system is ready to scale. This is that well-oiled machine you were trying to build from the very beginning.
And just look at the difference in output. A stable, optimized unit is now targeting around 300 CPLs a day. That is a 6-fold increase from that little pilot phase. But because you got there through this super disciplined process, it's a stable, sustainable level of work, not some risky, volatile number that could crash at any moment.
So, how do you make sure you actually stay on this disciplined path? Well, that's where the rules for smart scaling come in. Just think of these as the absolute, non-negotiable guardrails that keep you from driving right off a cliff as you grow.
Now, if you only take one single thing away from all of this, please let it be this. Your quality assurance capacity must always expand before your production team does. Let me say that again. Quality control has to lead the way for growth. It never, ever, ever follows it.
This whole framework is basically a shield against the most common and the most expensive scaling mistakes. It stops you from falling into that trap of thinking, hey, our pilot with 5 people was great, so let's hire 100. It keeps you from hiring a flood of new people without having enough senior staff to verify their work. It's a system designed to catch these totally predictable errors before they can blow up your whole operation.
So let's just zoom out for a second and wrap this up by looking at the core philosophy that holds this entire thing together. It's a pretty radical shift in how we tend to think about business growth. It's the idea that growth has to be earned, not just assumed.
So here's the bottom line. This isn't just a plan for growth. It's a risk management framework. Every single gate, every phase is designed to do 3 critical things: contain your compliance risk, preserve the trust you have with your clients and partners, and maybe most importantly, protect your capital from being wasted on scaling before you're ready.
And this quote just says it all. This is the whole thesis. In this model, growth isn't something you're entitled to just because you raised a bunch of money or you have a cool idea. It's a consequence. It is the natural result of proving, with hard data, that you are actually ready for it.
So I'll just leave you with this one question to think about. What is your business really building for? Are you just chasing speed at any cost? Or are you deliberately, patiently building for long-term stability? The answer to that question is probably going to determine not just how successful you are, but whether you survive at all. Thanks for tuning in.